You hear the tension before you ever see it. Radar screens glow quietly inside command centers across Taiwan. Operators sit in silence, watching small moving dots that represent some of the most advanced fighter jets in the world. Every day those dots appear, move closer, cross invisible lines in the sky, and then disappear again. For years, this pattern has become almost routine in one of the most sensitive regions on Earth. But suddenly, something strange happens. The numbers begin to fall. On the 25th of February, Taiwan reports 28 Chinese aircraft flying near the island. The next day, the number climbs to 30. Military analysts expect the pressure to continue like it always does. Chinese jets have been entering Taiwan's air defense identification zone almost daily for years as part of Beijing's pressure campaign against the self-ruled island. Then, the unexpected happens. The skies go quiet. For days, radar stations detect almost nothing. Fighter jets that once appeared regularly simply stop coming. The sudden silence raises questions across military circles from Washington to Tokyo. Why would China suddenly reduce its military pressure on Taiwan? Taiwanese data shows that since the beginning of the year, China has sent around 460 military aircraft toward Taiwan's identification zone, including fighter jets, surveillance planes, and drones. Yet this number represents a dramatic drop compared to the previous year. Overall activity has fallen by roughly 46%, something analysts did not expect during a period of rising global tensions. February alone shows the shift clearly. Taiwan recorded about 190 Chinese aircraft operating around its air defense zone during the entire month. That is the lowest monthly total since Taiwan began publishing detailed daily reports of Chinese military activity in 2022. For a region used to constant pressure, this sudden calm is almost more unsettling than the flights themselves. To understand why this matters, you have to understand what those flights actually mean. China considers Taiwan a part of its territory under the One China principle. Beijing has repeatedly stated that reunification with the island is inevitable, and it has never ruled out the use of force. Taiwan, however, operates as a self-governing democracy with its own military, government, and economy. Because of this dispute, the skies around Taiwan have become a stage for what many analysts call gray zone warfare. Chinese aircraft frequently fly into Taiwan's air defense identification zone, an area beyond Taiwan's territorial airspace, where incoming aircraft must identify themselves. These flights are not technically an invasion, but they force Taiwan's military to scramble jets, track the aircraft, and remain on constant alert. It is a strategy designed to apply pressure without starting a full war. Over time, the numbers have grown. Some days, dozens of Chinese aircraft approach the island simultaneously. Fighter jets like the J-10 and J-16, surveillance aircraft such as the KG-500, and drones have all been detected operating around Taiwan. On several occasions, more than 20 aircraft crossed the median line of the Taiwan Strait during a single operation. Each flight sends a message: China is watching. China is capable. China is close. That is why the sudden drop in activity is so surprising. From February 27th onward, Taiwan reported a rare stretch of days with no Chinese aircraft entering the zone at all. For a region that had seen almost daily incursions for years, a 6-day pause was unprecedented. Military analysts immediately began looking for explanations. One theory points toward global geopolitics. At the same time the flight stopped, tensions were rising in the Middle East. The United States, Israel, and Iran were involved in escalating confrontations that captured international attention. With Washington focusing heavily on the Gulf region, some experts believe Beijing may have chosen to reduce visible pressure in Asia temporarily. Another theory involves diplomacy.
There have been expectations of a high-level meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping. Such meetings often involve delicate negotiations over trade, tariffs, and security issues. Some analysts believe Beijing may be reducing military pressure around Taiwan to create a calmer political atmosphere before those talks take place. But there may be deeper reasons. Inside China's military, the People's Liberation Army has been undergoing significant internal changes. Reports of anti-corruption investigations and command restructuring have affected several senior officers. These purges could temporarily disrupt operational readiness and planning within the military hierarchy. If leadership structures are shifting, large-scale coordinated air operations might be temporarily reduced while the system reorganizes. Another possibility is strategic recalculation. Chinese military planners may simply be studying their own exercises. Over the past few years, Beijing has conducted increasingly complex drills around Taiwan, simulating blockades, missile strikes, and air superiority missions. A pause in daily flights could allow analysts to evaluate data, refine tactics, and prepare for future operations. From a military perspective, silence does not always mean peace. Sometimes it means preparation. Taiwan's defense officials are careful not to interpret the pause as a sign that tensions are fading. Even during the days when Chinese aircraft were absent from the skies, Chinese naval vessels and Coast Guard ships continued operating around the island. In other words, the pressure never completely stopped. It simply changed form. For Taiwan, every radar signal matters, every aircraft track is analyzed, every unusual pattern becomes a potential warning sign. The island has spent decades preparing for the possibility of a Chinese invasion, strengthening its military, modernizing its air defenses, and building partnerships with countries like the United States and Japan. Taiwan's leadership has repeatedly stated that the island is determined to defend itself. For Beijing, the long-term goal remains unchanged. Chinese leaders continue to describe Taiwan as an inseparable part of China and insist that reunification is a historic mission. That leaves the region stuck in a delicate balance. Too much pressure risks triggering a crisis. Too little pressure could weaken Beijing's medical message. So every move is calculated, every flight is deliberate, and every sudden pause raises new questions. Recently, after the unusual quiet period, Chinese aircraft began appearing again. Taiwan's defense ministry reported 2 Chinese warplanes entering the identification zone, signaling that the lull may have been temporary. For analysts, this confirms an important lesson about modern geopolitical competition. The most dangerous moments are not always the loudest ones. Sometimes the silence between events is where the real strategy unfolds. Across East Asia, military planners continue to watch the skies. Satellites scan the oceans, radar stations track every movement. Because in a region where one flight can trigger international headlines, even a week of quiet can become a global mystery. And the question still remains: was this calm a diplomatic signal, a strategic pause, or the quiet before something bigger? The world may find out sooner than expected.
Subscribe for more updates and comment me to show your opinion.